Well, you don't need to know much about bikes to have heard of a Triumph Bonneville. It's kind of the go-to classic, British classic. I suppose the American version would be a Harley Davidson. Everybody knows a Triumph Bonneville and knows someone who had one themselves. Triumph seem to be making these things forever, and even the new Hinckley modern versions, which are made in Thailand, are still called Bonnevilles. And there's even a T120R, which is what this is. This is a proper T120R. The Bonneville was introduced in the late 50s, the original one from Meriden. It was different from the others because it had twin carbs and was a 650cc, and it was one of the fastest bikes in the world at the time. By the early 60s, about 63, they'd gone from pre-unit construction, which is a separate engine and gearbox, to this, which is all in one piece. It's sort of not, it's bolted together, but this is called a unit construction. Still a twin, still overhead valve, nothing much has changed. Twin carburetors, one here, one on the other side. Twin exhausts. And in this form it carried on until 1970 odd, when they changed the frame. So instead of having a separate oil tank, which is this, to feed the engine, the oil was actually carried inside the frame. So the later ones are known as OIFs, oil in frame. This is a pre-oil in frame and is smaller and neater, and most people prefer it. In fact, this model between 66 and 70 are considered by many to be the ultimate Bonnevilles. They're the prettiest, they're the lightest, they're the fastest, they're you know, they're just nice. It's got the 8-inch twin leading shoe brake, which was considerably better than the disc brake that was to follow. It took a few years before disc brakes really began to happen. So the brake is the one to have. It's lightweight, it's powerful, it makes about 50 horsepower. And in fact, even the later models didn't really make much more power than this. So it's a combination of lightness, responsiveness, and power that gets you up to, realistically, you're not going to ride it much over 90, but it'll probably do about 105, I suppose, or something like that. They call it a T120. It's meant to do 120. Yeah, right. Clocks are, instrumentation is it's simple. Magnetic rev counter, magnetic speedo, ammeter, straightforward construction here on the bars. Nothing special. Coil ignition by now, so it was a nice bike. My gripe with Bonnevilles has always been that they're sort of fated as one of the greatest motorcycles in the world, and they're kind of not. They are responsive and they're fun, but they're big money. One like this would probably be, I don't know, well over £10,000. I've seen them in dealers for £20,000, and they're just not worth it. They're just a bit shonkily made. I've always thought of them as the Ford of motorcycles. So if you look at this side panel here, the seat hinges up. So to miss the seat hinging up, what they do is they just chop out the side panel. So then when you hinge a seat up, it doesn't damage the panel. But Norton would never do this. Velocette would never do this. They would just make a better job of it. Everything on them's just a bit... It's just a bit thin, you know, bolted up plates everywhere, brackets on brackets. And that's just always been the Triumph way. So they're sort of fast and they're fun and they're good in that respect, but they're just not a quality vehicle in the same way as the others, which has always been my beef with Triumphs. Having said that, I've been using this now for about 600 miles and it's been delightful. And I'm using it more and more. Should be a very easy bike to start. So petrol on, kickstart folded out, ignition on. This one has a key, of course, because it's new and exciting. And then we give it a one hefty kick and it should go. They're always easy to start, always have been. If you're going to look at a Triumph and it doesn't start properly, walk away. Or at least allow for that in your negotiations. You might even idle now. There you go. So this is a 1969 T120R Triumph Bonneville. Nice bike. Probably not worth the sort of money that it would command if I was to sell it, or if you wanted to buy one. I think there are better bikes out there for the same money, but sometimes if you want to own a Triumph, only a Triumph will do. I hope you like it. Cheers.